Over a year ago, I started journaling again, kind of as an act of hope to find myself, to find out who I am, what I'm meant to do, what my purpose is in the kingdom of God. But honestly, 1 year later, I wasn't expecting journaling, such a simple practice, to change me so much. When the year started, my situation was quite different. I was newly married. I had what I felt at the time was my dream car. Things seemed to be going really well, but something changed almost within the first 5 pages of writing this book. And before I tell you guys that, I want to tell you guys what I did basically to start this challenge off. And it kind of all started because I was looking back at these 2 journals that I had for a couple years previous, and it covered 2 years worth of time when I moved to Washington for a mission trip. And it was kind of inspiring to look through those pages to see the growth I had made, to see how my interests changed, or to see the things that I was studying at the time. I used it for everything. I actually use this journal for everything, which is why I call it my everything journal. And so at this time, I kind of was thinking, and I'm like, well, I could see this habit being really good for me again. And so I started with a prayer, and I basically dedicated this year and this practice of journaling into finding myself, building a relationship with God, and finding success. Another reason why I did this was I saw a video just shortly before talking about how a journal had replaced this guy's phone. And I wanted the same for me, as I think maybe we can all relate that phones are super addictive. It's just the mindless scrolling, the attention soul-sucking activities that take place on these devices that we carry around with us everywhere we go. And I was honestly tired of it. So yeah, journaling did just that. It did pull me away from my phone. And actually, for a good period of time, I felt that I wasn't really bound by the actions of scrolling. I also did feel like I was learning who I was. I was understanding the way that God communicated to me as I was simply just reflecting on every single thing that I was doing. But going back, something had changed. Within like the first 5 pages, you can find me writing about kind of an unexpected event when my grandma passed away. Now, this was kind of shocking to me, as when I had returned from those 2 years, that mission trip, she was living with us. And so I developed kind of a strong relationship with her. So this was hard. It was actually a lot harder for me than I thought it would be. And then as soon as I started to get over that, it was like another thing happened. And then my car broke down. It was like the turbo went out. And then I get the turbo replaced with a little bit of help from my parents, because I couldn't afford anything. I was newly married. I'd spent all my money on a wedding and a ring and a honeymoon. So I had no money, and my parents had to help me. And I was so grateful for that help at the time. And I know a lot of people don't get that support. And then one thing after the other, a hose blows out. And so we get that repaired. And then it blows out again. And then the water pump. We have a water pump issue. And everything's just going out and dying on my car. And I'm spending tons of money. And again, I had so much support and help from my parents that's why I was able to make it through. But by the end of this, it felt like a big old boxing match. I'm like around 4. And I've been knocked out over and over and over again. And I just keep taking hits to the face. And I'm getting back up the best I can. I've got all the support from my family, my friends, and all that. And I get back up, and then it's like another thing comes, which was, in this case, tax season. Which for me, being married for the first time, and like I've paid taxes before, but this was a little bit different because I was self-employed this year, meaning the government wasn't already deducting the money that was coming through my pocket. It all had to be deducted all at once. And if you are a 1099 employee like I am, it means that you're one of the highest taxed individuals. And so here I am, and I'm looking at what could be the price tag of $6,000. And I didn't really make that much money. If you want to do the math, you'll find that really we didn't make any money at all. So my wife and I were starting to use these journals. We set up a meeting every single week, every single Monday, where we would plan out, how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to make the money work? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And lo and behold, we developed some plans. One plan being, well, we could start donating plasma, literally giving our blood for some money, some blood money, right? My wife started doing that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this. And I remember the first time I went in there and I had that needle stuck in me. Sorry, trigger warning. I was like passing out. I was like, oh, I can't believe I'll have to do this for so long in order to be able to pay for taxes, literally giving my blood and my life for taxes for the government, which makes me so angry. But by some miracle, my tax man comes back to me and says, okay, you only owe the IRS $3,000, which If you're thinking and planning on $6,000 and it goes down to $3,000, you could imagine the gratitude that my wife and I felt. I mean, we weren't spending anything. We were saving everything, saving every single dime, and we were eating hardly, we couldn't even afford food, which is so unusual because before while we were dating, we were almost eating out every single meal. And I wrote all this down in my journal. I wrote about it. And I started to recognize changes in my life, a pattern as I wrote. And as I look back on those other pages, and I'd see that things were changing. Had I not written those things down, I wouldn't have recognized it. What's so crazy about this is finally we conquer taxes and we start to think, okay, we're in the clear. We're doing pretty good. And obviously we're trying to make back the money that we had lost. We're also trying to save enough money. Basically, we're living the same way as we were before. And we're just trying to save enough money to have like an emergency savings in case anything happened. You know, if something happened to me or my wife, you know, at least we would be ready or prepared. And by May, suddenly on Mother's Day, the dog we had gotten, which was given to us basically for free from a friend, passes away. Well, what happened in technicality was that the dog was a French bulldog. His back hips, I don't know, I can't remember the exact thing that happened, but a nerve in the spine got pinched by the hips or something like that. I'm not really sure exactly on everything. Overnight, paralyzed the dog. So we had our dog Kodak, which we appreciated and loved so much. And I remember being in my car and just crying and wondering, like, why has it been so hard? I've never had to face so many hard things. And we did get through that. We got through that period. Our lives started to change as we started to recognize and become more and more grateful. We were humbled. I understood some key principles at that time. That death is absolutely necessary. As hard as it is necessary so that you can understand, feel true love. I started recognizing the value of money and really what is the value of money? To live lavishly, to live deliciously, you might say, isn't actually as appealing. And I started looking at the scriptures. And the scriptures taught us that take ye no thought for what you should eat or what you should drink or what you should put on. But first take thought for the kingdom of heaven. And all of those things will be added upon you. And I reminded myself that as we struggled through these financial times and we pushed forward. In this period, I was asking God all the time, like, why does it have to be so hard? Why has it been so hard? And perhaps through the simple act of journaling, which I believe was how I was able to recognize this, I learned that it wasn't about God punishing us or anything like that. It was simply we had prayed at the beginning of the year and we asked God, can you please show us a way? Can you please give us what we need to grow and to go forward? Can you please help us? Can you aid us in progression? And what's necessary for good things to happen? Equal and opposite challenge. Our life had to get a lot harder. And the journal became an outlet. And we use these journals quite frequently. We use them every single week in our meetings. We'd use them almost every single day. And by reading and by writing in this journal, I started to recognize what was truly valuable. I realized I didn't really value the money. I valued my relationships. I valued my progression. I valued success. I valued having an audience that was being helped by the things that I had to say. When I reflect and I look at the goals that I had set for myself in this book, I realized that those were not what I wanted for me. It's what the world wanted for me, but it wasn't what I wanted for me. Neither was it what God wanted for me. I could recognize just by looking at the things that I was writing and by reflecting on the ways that I was feeling in those hard times, that what I wanted was a connection with God. What I wanted was a family. No, it wasn't about the materialistic life that I was living before. It wasn't about my car. It wasn't about the trip that we took to the Bahamas on our honeymoon. It wasn't about any of that. It wasn't about making tons of money this year. It wasn't about having the dream physique. But it was once we had realized those things that things actually started to work out for us. My wife and I are now teaching almost a full art class of our own private art class. And it's not like a lot of money, but it's sufficient enough for our needs and enough left over to save and to prepare for our future. My YouTube channel, I feel like it's going pretty dang good. Got a good amount of subscribers. And I'm not here to talk or brag about everything that's going on in my life. I want this to be a reflection of what can be in your lives. It's not that I have everything or that, this has only been a year. And I think we overestimate what can happen in a year and completely underestimate what can happen in a decade. And I can't remember who says that. I think it's Tony Robbins that says that. But I think back and I look at those journals that I wrote in within that 2 year period when I was on my mission. And I realized if I had not written down some of those spiritual experiences, as miraculous and as powerful as they were, it didn't matter how memorable I thought they were, I would have forgotten them. As I've gone back in these journals, I've remembered, and it's like the emotions flood back into me and I actually see the hand of God. Could it be that we don't recognize God in our lives because we are distracted by our phones and by the movies and by the video games and by these artificial achievements, by looking cool? It's so easy to forget about what happened, how God has blessed you. So easy to forget who God is and to recognize his hand in your life when your only focus is on things that have been programmed to literally pull all of your attention and take all of your time away. This is a great tool. If you're trying to get away from scrolling, it's the best tool. But I also think it's a lot more than just that. If you want to change your life, if you want your life to be significantly better, if you want to see things happen, have a journal. Watch the miracles that come out of writing on these pages. See the fruits that bear in your life. I've never had such a fulfilling year in my entire life, and I think it's really been that I've just dedicated myself to this journal. My friends, my name is Gabriel Bowman. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please let me know and leave a little like, comment, and subscribe so you guys don't miss any of my other videos. I post like this every single Monday. Without further ado, I'll see you later. Bye.